And I kind of felt like the world was against me because like, my parents were getting a divorce, I was broke, and I literally was just sitting in the basement like contemplating my life. Hey, what's going on? It's Mitch Gonzalez here, and welcome to this video. And in today's video, I want to share with you my entrepreneurial journey, just share with you where I was back in the day, how I went from broke delivering pizzas to building a multi-million-dollar consulting business in the span of like 4 years. So I just want you guys to learn a little bit more about me, who I am, and what I did to get to where I am today. Again, building a multi-million-dollar consulting business. So I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, and one of the stories that dates back to when I was like 8 years old, I just remember I have these uncles, and they're all wealthy. So one of them runs a big landscaping business out in Toronto in Richmond Hill. And I would always go to his house, and he had like massive house. He has tennis court, Porsche in the driveway. He has beautiful landscaping in the backyard with a huge pool. And he has, in the back, he had like ATVs and like just wild things that like blew my mind as a kid. And when I'd go over there, I'd always look forward to going over there. I had another uncle who owned a kitchen remodeling business, and they had a beautiful house, like again, a Porsche in the driveway. And so when I would go there, I'd see this is kind of what success looks like. And I would always think to myself as this 8-year-old like kid, and I would just think like, what are they doing different than my family and like the people around me in the neighborhoods that I'm living in? Because when you go to their house, there's like on massive lots with huge houses, and then I'm in like the suburbs in a small town. And so I'd always be thinking, what are they doing different? And I found that the common denominator was that they all ran their own businesses. So again, one of them ran a landscaping business, had like 8 trucks on the road, did like millions of dollars in sales a year. The other one has a kitchen remodel. They charge like 80 to like 200 grand for a kitchen. So like obviously they're making a lot of money, like millions of dollars a year in business. And so I saw that, and I knew I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And even from a very young age, I would go, and I lived in Canada, so it's snowing in the wintertime, so I'd knock on people's doors, and I would, get them to pay me for shoveling their driveway. And so I'd like charge them 20 bucks for the driveway. And then when I was 12 years old, I actually had a paper route. So I would go door to door selling newspaper subscriptions. And so at the time, my brother had did it when he was a little bit older, because my dad instilled it into us. And so at that time, I didn't really want to work. I wanted to just play video games and play hockey. That's what I did. But my dad kept instilling in me like, you have to like go and work for your money. And so I had a paper route, so I would go around door knocking on people's doors, selling them newspaper subscriptions when I was 12 years old, and I would be trekking in the snow at like 3-4 feet of snow with my cart, delivering these newspapers to like 200 houses around my street in my neighborhood. And then at that point, like I just always was working for money ever since then. And I was always doing like odd things. Like at school, I would sell them I would make fake bus passes, and I would sell bus passes. Just hustling in high school as well. Anything I possibly could to make my own money. I could never hold down a job. I'm what you would call like unemployable, where I couldn't hold down a job. Be there for like a month or two, and then boom, I'd get fired, or it just wouldn't work out. I always knew I had to do my own thing. And then I would say like around like 17, 18 is when I really started to get serious in terms of like running an actual business. And so I was still delivering my papers at the time. I tried to do a little landscaping business on the side. I actually had a car detailing business when I was like 16, 17, and basically would just go on this place called Kijiji. It's like Craigslist in Canada, and I would put up ads. I'd go into my mom's jewelry store, and I'd put out these flyers, and I would just get anybody and everybody that I could, and I'd go door to door asking people if they wanted to get their car cleaned. And then I went to this place called Canadian Tire in Canada and just bought a bunch of supplies, and just literally ran a car detailing business out of my garage, posting Kijiji ads. I'd take those pictures, put them up as new ads, and that's what I did for when I was like 16 to like 18, 19. And so when I had just finished high school, so I was about 18 years old at this time, and my parents, they wanted me to go to college, right? Because that's what you do. You want to go to college, get a job, all this traditional, way. But I knew in my bones that this was not for me. Like, again, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life up to this point. I was hustling, doing car detailing, shoveling driveways, selling anything and everything I could in school, right? And so I just knew that it wasn't the route for me. And so, but I said, you know what, I'll commit to 1 year because I didn't know what I wanted to do, even though I did. And this time, you see all these other opportunities online. You see like, Forex trading, e-commerce, crypto, you see affiliate marketing, all these different things. And so at this time, the first thing I got into was Forex trading. So I was trading Forex, and while I was doing that, I was going to school. And so I would barely go to school. I dropped out of college in my first semester, and I was just trading every single day. So I was learning trading, and I was just obsessed with it. Like, it was an obsession. Still to this day, I love trading and investing, but I don't do it too much because I want to focus on the business. But at that time, that was like my first love, was Forex. And so I was just trading. I was living in my parents' basement at this time. And in order to make money with Forex and investing, you need capital. And at this time, I was literally dead broke. I was delivering pizzas for Pizza Hut, and I was living in my parents' basement. So at this point, I was no stretch of any imagination the type of guy that I am now. I was very shy, very reserved, and I wasn't the type of guy that you would think would be a massive success. And so at this time, I needed capital, but I didn't have any money. And so I had to go to my dad, and I convinced him. I'm like, hey, where can I get capital from? And I was like, okay, well, I want to get a line of credit. And so in order to get a line of credit, I needed him to co-sign on the line of credit for me to even get it. And so I basically sold him on it. I convinced him. It took me like a month and a half to convince him. I even got my mom involved to convince him as well. And so he finally said, yes, I'll do it, because I was like, I just had so much conviction that I was going to make like millions of dollars through Forex. And so I got a $10,000 line of credit, and I blew like 5,000 of that on courses. And then the other 5,000 I put into a Forex account. I remember going to the bank and just wiring $5,000 to like Australia brokers. And like the lady at the bank was like, that as soon as I press enter, like, you're never gonna see this money again, right? And I said, yeah, like, send it. And so she sent the wire, and I just remember I was like, okay, this is my time to shine. Like, I'm gonna make it. And again, I was also investing in courses. So I was, investing into like social media marketing courses. I was investing into all these different things. This is like pre-Tai Lopez courses and things like that. I also bought his courses, but this was pre that. And at that time, I was about 18, 19 years old, and I started my social media marketing business. I would go door to door to restaurants. So I'd go to about like 20 to 40 restaurants a day in my local area, and I would drive like an hour away, and I would go on these like missions, I would call them. And I would go door to door knocking on these restaurants' doors, and I would head off of flyers, and I would sell them on social media. So this is like back in 2015. And at the time, I was in this place where I really wanted to make money. I really wanted to start a business. And again, I had these odd things at the time, but they were kind of like hobbies. They were just things that I did as like, instead of people going out and like playing with their friends, I would go and just, detail cars. Obviously I would do things like fun, like ride dirt bikes and stuff, play hockey. But at the time, I knew that I wanted to start a real business, and so I would go door to door. I'd drive out like an hour away, go to like 20 to 40 restaurants. Any restaurant I could find, I would just go door to door. At the time, I was selling them Instagram management, so I'd manage their Instagram, and then also I would boost some posts and do like giveaways on their Facebook pages, and I'd also build their email list. And then one day I pull up to this restaurant in my Honda Civic, and I sit in the car for a minute, and I'm in the parking lot. And I look in the rear view mirror, and I look myself in the eyes, and I'm like, I didn't want to go in there, right? And I was like trying to talk myself out of it. Then I just looked myself in the eyes, and I said, go in there, the owner's gonna be in there, and you're gonna sign him up. And so what I did was, I got my stuff, I walked into the restaurant, I said, hey, is the owner here? He's like, yeah, come with me. So I go to the back, and I meet the owner, we shake hands. I tell him, look, I wanna help you grow your restaurant. We sit down at the table, about 5-10 minute conversation. I pull out the flyer, tell him everything I'm gonna do for him. He's like, okay, yeah, how much is it? And I was like, yeah, it's $1,500 a month. And I just threw out a number. I didn't have a client at this point. And so I just threw out a random number. He's like, okay, sits there. I look at him, he nods his head, he walks away. So I'm like, okay, what is he doesn't want the service. He comes back with his checkbook, writes the check, rips it off, hands it to me. He's like, okay, come back tomorrow and we'll do some work. And that moment, I'm telling you, I walked out of the store. I had the windows down, I was blasting music, and I was like cheering, screaming out the window, and I was just grabbing onto the steering wheel, and I was just hyped because, again, I just knew in that moment my life was gonna change. Because at this point, it was also a transition period when I was like from like a teenager to like becoming an adult. So it was like a transition period where I like, okay, this is where my life is gonna start. And again, I was like 18 when I did this, so it was like just a surreal moment. And so the next day, I went to the bank, I cashed a check, and then I was like, okay, well, I gotta deliver and I gotta provide the service to this guy, right? Because I told him I'm gonna create videos for him, I'm gonna do giveaways, I'm gonna build his email list, I'm gonna, build his Instagram, I'm gonna post on there. And so I like promised like a lot for like 1,500 bucks a month, probably way more than I probably should have. And so what I did was I called up my friend Darren I met in college, and he's actually the video marketing specialist behind our Executive Advantage brand now, the one that's actually filming this video right now. And so I called him and I said, hey man, like I just signed up this restaurant client. I need you to do some photography, do some videography work. Could you come in and I'll pay you like a couple $100 to do it? And he's like, yeah, sure. So we go in, we get all set up, we're in the back, and I'm just telling him the vision. I'm telling him, yeah, man, like I'm gonna scale this to like multiple millions. I'm gonna move downtown. I'm just telling him all these things, and he's like, yeah, okay. He didn't really believe it because at the time, like, you don't believe something until you see it, right? It's like when the boy who cried wolf. Like you're saying, look, I'm gonna get on. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna be a millionaire, and then what happens is people don't believe it. It's like you keep saying it, and then one day it just comes boom out of nowhere, and then people start to believe in like, oh shit, there was really a wolf, right? And so like that's how I felt, is like the boy who cried wolf. I kept telling everybody I was gonna get on. But in that moment, I remember we were just filming some video in there, and I got like a month or two, like a couple months worth of content from that one day. And then I built that up. And then that first restaurant, I helped him go from like 90K a month. He was stuck there for like 4 years. And then within like 3 months, he was doing 120K a month. And at the time, he didn't put 2 and 2 together. He didn't really see the value of what I was doing. And so at the time, I was also like, didn't really like it because every single month I'd have to go in there and I'd have to resell him on why he should continue paying me for the services. Even though he knows that the business is growing, I built his email list like 2,000-3,000 people in a small town of only 100,000 people, which I thought was really great. And so the thing was, I just hated going there. He had to hand me a physical check, and I wanted to build the business more online, not offline, because I had to go in there in person, film the videos, take the photos, sell him on why he should continue trying to upsell him on other services like running ads and things like that. And so at that point, I think he was like paying me like $2,000 a month. And I did that for like 4 or 6 months. And then I was like, you know what? I sat down and I'm like, okay, how can I take this to the next level? And at that point, I was just grinding in my dad's basement. So at the same time, I was delivering pizzas because I wasn't making enough money. So I was delivering for Pizza Hut. And that's also when I'd be in my car, I'd be prospecting other restaurants in my car. And so I'd have like lists on my laptop, and I'd have like a jotted down notes. And anytime I'd run by and I'd see like a restaurant that looked good, I'd write it down. I'd write down the address, I'd write down the phone number. And then in the car, when I wasn't doing deliveries, because I'd be in the car waiting for deliveries to come in, I'd be cold calling, I'd be sending emails. On my way back from deliveries, I'd stop into restaurants and I'd try to get more clients. And I just didn't like the whole vibe. And again, I was broke. I was in a place where I was just trying to like really scale the business. So at this point, I was 19 years old. I was living in my parents' basement. I was delivering pizzas for Pizza Hut. I had just dropped out of college. I just blew all my money and even went into debt for courses and trying to make it with Forex. And at this point, me, my dad, and my brother were up north in Canada. We were like fishing in a cottage. And I remember we were on this little boat and we're driving on the boat, just us three. And he stops in the middle of the lake and he says, me and your mom are getting a divorce. And so at that point, like my heart sunk. I was like, I wasn't surprised, but it was something you never think would happen. And so at that point I was like, damn, like I really need to make this shit happen. And so again, I was like 19 years old, still living in my parents' basement. And like my life wasn't great at the time. Again, I had one client, so I had some like level of like faith and belief that it was gonna happen. But this is where like urgency just seeped into my veins. And I was like this sense of urgency and emergency. Like I needed to make this happen like ASAP, because it was like 2017 at this time. I had a couple of clients, but in a year from now, that's when like the divorce was gonna be settled, and then also we're gonna sell the house. And so at this point, I'm living in the basement. There's like talks about like selling the house and things like that. And like, I don't have money to go live on my own, and I wanted to move out on my own, but I couldn't at that time. So I knew that I had a year for me to actually make it happen. And I kind of felt like the world was against me because, like, you know, my parents were getting a divorce. I was broke, and I literally was just sitting in the basement, like, contemplating my life. And so at this point, I remember it was like the end of 2017, and everything was coming to like it was converging in, right? And so it was like this, like my back was against the wall, and like I almost had this like internal time limit. And it wasn't even, it was external as well. That was like pressure in order to me to produce and actually, you know, make the business happen. Because also my dad was like, you know, saying like, you gotta go get a job and all these things, like, you know, if you don't get it in this time frame. And so at this point he was like, okay, we're gonna be moving to a new house, right? And you're gonna be having to pay rent, right? Because, you know, my dad was going through divorce, you know how that is, you know? And so it was like a really hard time. And then also at this point, me and my brother and my dad were gonna be sharing a house and paying rent. And so at this point, I was like, I'm not gonna be moving in there. I wanna get my own place, and I don't wanna have to leave this house, because I wanted to move from like my childhood house to like my own place. And there was like this pressure, because like at this point, the divorce was settling, the house is getting sold in like 4 or 5 months. And so I was like, okay, now is the time for me to like really just go hard and just absolutely transcend. And so at this point, I was just running up that line of credit, so I'd invest in myself. And I remember like it was like 4 or 6 months before I had to actually move in or move out of the house, and like we're gonna sell the house. And so I remember that I invested into a Grant Cardone conference, right? And I met him in Toronto. And so when I met him, it was like this like energy like shifted. And when I came out of that, I basically went from like making the $1,500 a month, and I niched down to financial planners and financial advisors, because I was, again, very passionate about Forex and the markets. And from that point, I remember I went from making $1,500 a month, and I signed 2 clients up that month, and I made 10 grand in that month. So literally like a month after this conference with Grant Cardone, it was like something shifted in me. And the time frame is closing in. It's like I'm in like Indiana Jones with the walls closing in. And I was like, okay, well, I need to make this happen. Literally pulled out, made 10 grand a month. And then the next month I made 21 grand a month, right? So I signed 2 more clients up. So I was making 21K. Then I signed 2 more clients up. So I basically reverse engineered my goals down. And so I went from making like $1,500 a month to like 45K a month, living in my dad's basement, just grinding on my laptop. And I remember I'd run up the stairs and I'd show him that I made 10K, and like he didn't believe it. He was like, whoa, really? Is this legit? And he's like, he just couldn't believe it. And then literally within 6 months, I was making over $42,000 a month in USD at the time, so over like 50K a month in CAD. And at that point, it was literally the month that we sold the house. I moved into the new house with my brother and my dad for 1 month, and then I moved into a penthouse downtown Toronto, literally that next month. And so it was just a surreal moment for me, because it was like I went 0 to 100 real quick because it was just like, it was crazy. And I remember going into this penthouse, and it just felt so familiar, because I've been, for the past 2-3 years prior to that, every single day in the morning and at night, I would sit there and visualize my hands on the balcony, smelling the air, looking at the CN Tower, looking at the expansive views of the city, and I would visualize it every single day. And so when I stepped into there, it was like I was already living that reality. And it was just like true manifestation at its core. And so one thing about me that I think is different than most young men is that during those years of like 19 to like 23, I really didn't date women. Like I had a lot of girls when I was in high school and like when I was going through that college period of my life, but at that point from like 19 to 23, I just locked in. Like at the point where like nothing else mattered to me other than getting out of my situation and building a business, building myself first, becoming that confident, you know, well-spoken, ambitious man going and chasing his dreams. That's what I was focused on. And I didn't really have any regard, like I had zero desire to date girls and like go out and party and things like that. I mean, that was also a product of my mentors. They didn't believe in that. And so they said, you know, this is the time where you gotta like sacrifice a little bit of things, and you just gotta like, you gotta go for it, right? And you just gotta put your everything, your entire soul and being into your work. And so that's really what I did. And again, from those periods, I didn't really, go out too much. And I obviously had fun, so like but I like different things. Like I like to work out, I like to go up north and like be in nature and environment. So I would do those things. Go and like obviously I'd go out in Toronto, but the thing is, you gotta lock in and you gotta just put your everything into it, right? My back was against the wall, especially when I first moved into my place. Like there was no mommy and daddy to like, go and support me. It was like, I'm on my own. I'm 20, 21 at the time, like in this place where it was like but like I was making a lot of money at the time, but it was still like $3,100 a month or whatever. And like, people were telling me like, you're crazy. Why are you spending that much money on a friend? But like I wanted to be in that environment. And so at that time I was just, so locked in. I was just so focused on the work. And that's really what it requires if you want to build a multi-million-dollar business. Is like, it's going to require you to sacrifice. It's going to require you to go all in and focus on one thing with this incessant, like an unrelenting drive to like make it happen. And you know what I mean? And so it was really just me locked in for like literally like 18 months straight. I was literally doing like 8 to 12 sales calls a day, like 6 days a week. And I would just be like producing like 10, 20K a day in sales. And like that, again, I got to like 150K a month by myself selling over the phone. And so it was like this like really just like period where I was like my Oura Ring stats were like 93 every single day. I'd be waking up at 5 a.m. It was just like this period where I was just so locked in and nothing else mattered, and like I just wanted it so bad. And then when you get there, it's like, this is your standard, right? Because one of my mentors said, he's like, you don't become the highest dreams in which you can imagine, you become the lowest version of yourself you're willing to accept. And so the bare minimum that I'm willing to accept was $1 million. Right now it's raising that bar to 10 million, 100 million, billion, right? So just keep raising that bar and your standard on what you're willing to accept for yourself and also the people around you in terms of who they can become and pushing them to the next level. And then also at the time when I was like feeling complacent, right before I was going to be moving to Miami, I started making music and like just going outside of my comfort zone. So again, when you're doing the same thing every day, you gotta like switch it up. And so you gotta use these different things in your mind. So like I was more like logical, looking at numbers, looking at spreadsheets every day, but I had no like creativity. Really, I mean, obviously there's creative writing ads and things like that and copy, but I had no creativity. And so I had to have a creative outlet. So I started making music, I started making beats. I've always wanted to do that my entire life. And so to this day, I also used it as a place where I can also build myself up. And so I remember I was reading this one book and it's like, who you become is who you think you are. And so if you think about who you want to become, go do what those person do, and then you're going to become what that person is. And so for myself, it was like, okay, I want to become a music producer. What do they do? And they make music. So I would just be, again, watching tutorials online, making beats. And so now, to this day, I still make beats and I love it. And who knows where it's going to take me, but it's just really a creative outlet that you can use to, just feel that other side of yourself. And that's something that I did for about like 3 years now. So I'm glad that I did it because time will pass anyway. Same way you're building your business. Time is going to constantly go and it's going to elapse regardless of what you want it to do, right? So it's just gonna keep going, and what you do within this allotted time is gonna allow you to actually achieve your goals. And so that was one of the big things for me, is just like challenging myself, putting myself in outside of my comfort zone, and then also moving to a new country, a new city is also a big game changer in the journey. And so I would say if anyone's like looking at, okay, like they feel complacent or stagnant, change your environment, instill urgency. Like, what if everything was taken away from you today and you had nothing, right? Act like that today, put your back against the wall and make those hard decisions where you gotta spend your last dollar, you gotta go into debt, you gotta do whatever it takes, you gotta be on the phone for 12 hours a day. Do those things that aren't scalable, that are scary, that are outside of your comfort zone, and that's what's really gonna help you get to the next level and just like expand yourself in terms of getting to the next level in every area of your life. And so the reason why I do all of this is not more than just like sales and making money and building a business. Obviously I love those things, But the underlying premise behind that is I remember this 18-year-old kid in his basement trying to figure this shit out on his own, grinding, going door to door, struggling to make this happen, going through his parents' divorce, feeling like, again, this world was against me. Again, at the time I knew I had the belief in all this stuff that I had to build in myself, but at the time, like, I want to do it for those people that feel that they can do more in their life, that they can expand, they get out of a situation that they're in that they don't want to be in, and they can really expand beyond their current awareness and their current perspective. And so the reason why I do a lot of the things I do now is to help people in that state where they don't have the skills, they don't have the character traits, they don't have the tools and the systems that are necessary to order to help them succeed and transform not just their life, but then impact other people in their life. So their clients, their families' lives. And so my goal really is to alter the trajectory of people's family trees and completely have them go on a pathway where they're going to inevitably create a universe and a life that is completely different than the way where they are now. And so that's really why I do what I do, is to impact people. And I know that if I help one person, that person is going to help another person, and it's just going to be this ripple effect in the world of change. And that's really why I do what I do, because I just seen these transformations that have been on my life and the things that changed my life and changed who I was, like really fundamentally. Every cell, every microfiber of my being has been altered and changed to the person I am today. And so being able to have that same impact in someone's life and seeing not just what it does in their personal life, but again, in their entire, helping their clients and their family is really the impact of what I want to make. And I feel like another critical part of my journey was at the end of 2020. I mean, obviously that was a crazy year. I remember I was in the hospital. I thought I had COVID, and because I was problems with my chest and things like that, so I was like, I'm sketching out. I was like, having anxiety. So I went to the hospital, and I'm sitting there, and my friend just starts texting me a bunch of these Bible verses, and I'm waiting for the results to come back from the doctor. And one of them was, I'm probably gonna butcher it, but it's like, don't worry what ye shall eat, don't worry what ye shall drink, for only the pagans worry about those things. The person that basically believes in God, everything will be given unto you. And so in that moment, and then it was just also about like health and that it was gonna be restored. And it was just like these verses that hit my soul. And in that moment, I felt the Holy Spirit just pierce through me, and I seen God, man, I'm telling you. And it was just like this surreal moment where, anybody that knows that, it was just like this washing over me, and it felt like I was reborn. Like after that moment, I felt reborn. And ever since then, like I've been just really just a son of God, man, like just reading the Bible and knowing that God is with me, and everything in my life has like completely changed. And so it was just a big moment in terms of like the journey, and knowing that this is for like a higher purpose and a higher power, and that I'm just a servant of God. I'm just a vessel and a vehicle where people can experience change through me, and I am a servant of that, right? And I'm willing to go and serve in God's name. And so that was just a big turning point as well in my life. And even to this day, I read the Bible every single day. And I also go to church now, which is great. But again, it's not really about religion. It's more about having that purpose, having that why. And so, yeah, I would just say if you're looking into these things, like definitely, find it in your soul. So hopefully you got to learn a little bit more about me and you enjoyed this video. It's a little different style of video. I just wanted to share with you my story. Maybe you can relate to some of these things. Maybe it can help you in your journey as well. And so I'm really pumped to be able to share that with you, because like a lot of these things I never really shared publicly. And so again, just hopefully you found some insights, some value from it. And yeah, don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and also comment below and tell me a little bit more about yourself and kind of what your journey was all about. Would love to hear more about you guys as well. And yeah, and just come with more videos like this. And also, if you like this style of video, comment below. We got a lot more stories to tell you as well. I can go a lot more detail in certain things. But yeah, hopefully you found massive value in this video. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.